Our theme this month has been, would it be all right if life got easier? I ended last week's talk on focusing your energies by saying, be willing to look at what is reality in your life in the moment. Be willing to see what is happening or not happening as a result. Be willing to be truthful about the impact of what is happening, and then take authentic action to focus your energies in a meaningful, harmonious, satisfying, and fulfilling way. So guess what? Today's topic is recognizing authentic action. Sogyal Rinpoche, who is a Buddhist monk, said once, active laziness consists of cramming our lives with compulsive activity so that there's no time at all to confront the real issues. Our lives seem to live us, possess their own bizarre momentum to carry us away. We tell ourselves we want to spend time on the important things of life, but there never is any time. In the end, we feel like we have no control or choice over them. So here are some questions to ponder as we open up to the concept of demonstrating authentic action in our lives. Why do I hang on to things that have no lasting or ultimate value in my life? Boy, am I learning that this past week when I'm having to move things from one room to another, to another, to another. Why am I still hanging on to this? Where I really need to move this is into the garage and ultimately to the thrift shop. Why do I fill my life with compulsive activity that takes away time to resolve issues that limit or restrain me from enjoying the magnificent gift my life really is? Why is there never enough time for what I know are the important things and people in my life? Well, best-selling Marianne Williamson, who is a familiar name to many of you, I'm sure, shows people how to live without fear or worry in her book titled The Gift of Change. Ooh, there's that word, change. The time in which we now live is more difficult and stressful than many people are willing to admit, she writes. We live in an abiding sense of collective anxiety and anger because we're not facing and dealing with the true causes of our anxieties and fears. You hear a little science of mind in there? Well, yeah, you do. She goes on to reveal that fear and worry need not be the only tools in our toolbox for dealing with problems in the world. As we learn to trust God and the love that surrounds us and guides us, we will see that sometimes what causes us pain is actually an opportunity for growth, for healing, and for miracles, those remarkable events that can transform us and the world around us. Williamson delivers hope and healing as she illuminates basic changes that each of us can make as we learn to view the world through the eyes of love instead of fear. The name of the book, again, if you're interested in her 10 basic changes, is The Gift of Change. And you remember, because we've been talking about it all month, I've been using Maria Namath's signature book, The Energy of Money, which has so many good ideas in it that apply in every area of our lives where energy is a part. And in fact, all areas of our lives, energy is a part. In the book, she talks about taking authentic action by saying, first, we must define for ourselves what authentic action is. So here is her definition. Authentic action is the natural consequences of discerning things as they truly are. It's the final step in a 4-step process of look, see, tell the truth, and then take authentic action. Those 4 things I mentioned at the end of the talk last week and the beginning of the talk this week. Look, see, tell the truth, take authentic action. And then she goes on to say there are 2 types of authentic action in the model that she uses as she brings this information forward. The first one is authentic action that clears away any unfinished business from our path so that we can proceed in an unobstructed manner. And 2, authentic action which brings us forward and implements our goals, our intentions, our outcomes. So here's the process. First of all, look. Put your focus, put your attention on what you're looking at instead of thinking about or bringing into your life. That's called staying in the present moment, isn't it? Put your attention on what you're looking at in the moment. Because she says our consciousness affects the way it appears. Ooh, how metaphysical does that sound? Of course. Sounds like a simple process, doesn't it? But as we know in our metaphysical studies, it's not always easy. Simple, yes, not always easy. So her approach is to look. Keep your attention focused on this, even if to begin with that's inconvenient or uncomfortable. You see, what we're looking for is what truly is in the moment, without the ruffles and flourishes or the oh ain't it awful, just looking at it as it is. And then number 2, see. To see means to notice, to examine, to discern. This may very well bring into the foreground thoughts and actions that have been outside our awareness. I'm not only looking at it, I'm seeing it. This to guide our awareness, consciously or unconsciously, what has been outside that awareness. The pathway to taking authentic actions is not only looking at the unfinished business of our lives, and we all have that, or looking at the intended business we are considering bringing into our lives. The pathway to taking authentic action is to see the patterns in our pathway, to see the patterns in our behaviors that may be obstructing our moving forward to implementing authentic action. This is allowing to bring into the light what perhaps up until now we've continued to suppress or repress or pretend it doesn't exist in our lives. It's sort of like the elephant in the room sometimes. So here's the 3rd step now. First we had look, then we had see. The 3rd step to taking authentic action in Namath's model is to tell the truth. She considers this imperative in order for us to focus our energies in the direction that we wish to move and succeed. Well, in our philosophy of the science of mind, we recognize that sometimes in the unfolding of our lives, toward our highest and best good, there's stuff in the way. Stuff. Maria calls that bubkus. Remember bubkus from the talk last week? It means nothing at all in Yiddish. But when one uses the word, one means something by it, don't they? There's another word that you hear kicked around that meets these criteria of stuff or bubkus. And that's dross. Sometimes dross. It's what's left over that has no real value in certain scientific processes. So sometimes there's stuff, bubkus, or dross, that hangs around in our unconscious. And if it's in our unconscious, we are not conscious of it. One way to deal with that is to ignore it. It doesn't always accept that. Monkey mind, remember the talk on monkey mind? Another way is to acknowledge it and to convince ourselves, oh, well, that's just the way I am. But you see, that's an incomplete action. The third way is to tell ourselves the truth about that stuff in our lives. That in and of itself, by doing that, is taking authentic action. I'm looking at it. I'm acknowledging it. In Maria's model, that first step, acknowledge, is what I frequently talk about, you almost nag about, and that's acknowledge, bless, release. In order to release something, we have to acknowledge that it exists, don't we? As long as we're ignoring it, how can we release it? As soon as we acknowledge it, then we bless it. We bring it into the present moment and we bless it for having brought us to this moment, because it's a part of our total life experience that we are now living. So we bless that. Now we're in a position to release it. In her model, that first step acknowledges telling the truth about any seeming limitations, old behaviors, or bupkis that is not the truth of our being, so that we can let those falsehoods go by blessing them, bring them into the moment for recognition, and then release them as no longer necessary in the life we have chosen for ourselves. So now we're ready for step number 4, and that's take authentic action. Now we're ready to move forward in life for what Marianne Williamson calls opportunities for growth, healing, and remarkable events that can transform us and, in the process, the world. And I believe that taking authentic action concentrates and amplifies my energies in the direction that I choose to go in life. This is why I'm a follower of the philosophy of the science of mind, because it gives me some ideas, it gives me tools, it gives me a solid connection with my source of being, God, by which to live a successful life. There's one postscript to this concept that I've been describing here this morning, and that is there any difference between driven behavior and authentic action? And the answer is yes. Driven behavior is what comes out of self-limiting inner dialogues of stuffing or ignoring our true values. When I talk about self-limiting inner dialogues, I'm talking about that monkey mind again that we talked about earlier this month. Authentic action, on the other hand, is the result of putting your attention on what you really want, choose, accept in your life, and directing, focusing your energies on realizing them. Driven behavior is energy draining. Authentic action is invigorating and mobilizing. In last week's talk on focusing your energies, I talked about Nanaviri's thoughts on change. So I bring her into today's talk about taking authentic action as a significant example of that very thing. Last week, I shared with you a part of her affirmation in her own life for change. And this morning, I want to share the rest of that. She says in her chapter on change, we create changes in our lives through our thoughts. Thought is a vibration, a force, an energy, the creative medium that you use to manifest the experiences of your life. Because of thoughts, we are co-creators with life. Be sure you go back and review that last week's talk on the rest of her affirmation for change. It'll be on YouTube in the not too distant future. It was August 20th. So George Bernard Shaw said once, "This is the true joy of my life, to be used for a purpose that I myself recognize as a mighty one. I choose to be a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish, little clod of I can hardly say this word because I don't believe it, ailments and grievances, complaining that the world has not devoted itself to making me happy." This is George Bernard Shaw speaking. "I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community of humankind, and as long as I live, it's my privilege to do for it whatever I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, because the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle to me. It's a splendid torch, which I get to hold up for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before I hand it on to the future generations." George Bernard Shaw. You know, I was so highly impressed when I read that statement from him. I've always thought of him as a sharp-tongued, judgmental smart aleck. Then I had the privilege of experiencing these words because they really get into your cells when you think on them. Him describing this authentic action in his life. And I was so impressed by how God was expressing even through him. It helped me to remember that authentic action is God expressing through me and through you and through Sogyal Rinpoche, through Maria Namath, Marianne Williamson, through Nana Very, through George Bernard Shaw, through us all. And though God is also being expressed when we're being lazy, procrastinating, unfocused, driven, I am very sure that for me, I'm expressing it at a much higher level when I'm being authentic. And I'm equally sure that revealing my true values through being authentic makes life a whole lot easier, happier, exciting, satisfying. How about you? Would it be all right if revealing your true values by being authentic made your life easier? So it is.
Thank you.